Hello, my friend, and welcome to Something for Everybody. My name is Aaron Machbitz, and today is a solo episode of the podcast where I'm talking about mental toughness, specifically discussing 5 things you can do to build your mental toughness. But before we get into that, let's start with self-awareness. Self-awareness is like the arrow on the Google map. You start there, figuring out where you are. Then it's about the commitment to do what needs to be done to get where you want to be. The best performers observe themselves closely. They're in effect able to step outside themselves, monitor what is happening in their own mind, and ask, how's it going? The top performers do this much more systematically than others do. It's an established part of their routine. This is one of the skills we need to master if we want a shot at raising our game. It all starts with self-awareness. Again, self-awareness is like the arrow on the Google map. You start there, figuring out where you are. Then it's making a commitment to do what needs to be done. And so here are 3 questions to ask yourself to build your self-awareness muscle. Question number 1, what do you do really well? What do you do really well? Question number 2, what do you need to improve on? And then the third question is, what is your plan for addressing number 2? Or what is your plan for addressing those things you need to work on? You need to reflect on those questions to start building this self-awareness muscle, because self-awareness is really about knowing yourself, understanding yourself. Again, listen to one of these statements that I just said. Top performers are able to observe themselves closely. They're in effect able to step outside themselves, monitor what is happening in their own mind, and ask, how's it going? Right? They do this very systematically, more systematically than others do. It's part of their established routine. That's why they're top performers. But they've built this self-awareness muscle, asking themselves the right questions and reflecting on those questions to better understand who they are and how they want to be and what it feels like to be at their best. That's very important. That's why we're starting with self-awareness before we dive deeper into these 5 things you can do to build mental toughness. And so with that said, we know motivation is fickle. It just is. Willpower comes and goes. Mental toughness isn't about an incredible dose of inspiration or courage. It's about building the daily habits that allow you to stick to a schedule and overcome challenges and distractions over and over and over and over again. Mentally tough people don't have to be more courageous, more talented, or more intelligent. They just are more consistent. Mentally tough people develop systems that help them focus on the important stuff regardless of how many obstacles life puts in front of them. It's their habits. It's your habits that form the foundation of their or your mental beliefs and ultimately set you apart to becoming that best version of you or that ultimate performer in whatever domain you live in. Mental toughness comes down to your habits. That's why we're talking about these 5 things today. It's about doing the things you know you're supposed to do on a more consistent basis. It's about your dedication to a daily practice and your ability to stick to a schedule. Now that we have that foundational piece laid, let's jump into these 5 things you can do to build mental toughness. Number 1, delay gratification. Delay gratification. Your ability to delay gratification will largely determine how far you get in life. Yes, it's that important. It really is. Mentally strong people prioritize long-term peace over short-term pleasure. The best performers in the world understand the long-term horizon of their vision. It took me 15 years. It took me 10 years to become an overnight success. That's because very few people see the consistent, daily, persistent effort that didn't really amount to anything publicly speaking or in anyone else's eyes, but you knew every day you were committing to something each and every day and getting better and getting better and getting better and getting better, 1%, being the best at getting better, that you knew that you delayed that gratification because you had a longer term vision and a longer term horizon of where you wanted to be. And you said, I'm making a commitment to do this. And so I'm going to delay my gratification. I'm going to be as consistent as possible for as long as humanly possible. And hopefully that will lead me to where I want to be. And so you can do that in your daily life. You can do that with a longer term vision. You can do that with any sort of these habits you want to build. If you want to start building this mental toughness habit of being able to delay gratification. And so here's a little tip on how to do that, on how to improve. Use the 10-minute rule. When tempted by a distraction, anything in your life, wait 10 minutes before giving in. Often, the urge will pass. This is how you practice delayed gratification in a small, inconsequential setting. So when then you start to do something that's important to you or high value to you, you know that you've built up this mental toughness, delayed gratification muscle that you can hold off on distractions. You can pay attention to the right things at the right time because you've used this 10-minute rule in your day-to-day life, right? You're doing some sort of work at your desk, school work, business work, just work, and you're tempted by a distraction. It's pulling you. Start a 10-minute timer. Just work through it for the next 10 minutes before you go and do that thing that you're pulled to go do. And most of the time, the urge will pass. And now you've given yourself credible evidence that you can delay gratification. Yes, it's a small sample size, but that's the evidence you need to build that foundation and stack on those wins. So that's number one. Number two, show up on tough days. Show up on tough days. Often we feel stuck right before a breakthrough. The days you least want to show up usually end up being the ones that matter most. You're capable of much more than you think. You have to show up on the tough days. We talked about this right before I started going into these 5 things. Mental toughness is about habits, and it's about a dedication and a commitment to show up no matter what, to do what needs to be done regardless of how you feel, because motivation will go away, willpower will go away. What stays is your ability to do the things that need to get done. And so if you want to be considered a mentally tough person, or you want to grow the skill of mental toughness, you have to show up on the tough days, no matter what. Especially when we don't want to, that's when we definitely need to show up. Man, I don't want to move my body today. I'm going to go for a 10-minute walk. It doesn't have to be anything extravagant, but we have to show up on the tough days. I'm not really feeling it today. Well, I'm going to do this little drill. I still showed up today. I gave the best of what I had today because I make a commitment to myself to show up on the tough days. That's just who I am. That's part of me. Right? We talked about self-awareness, knowing thyself. Well, if you are the type of person who shows up on tough days, then give yourself the credible evidence that you actually do that. And so here's again another tip on how to actually do this and improve this in real life. Just take a minute. Take a minute to write down your why. The real reason any goal or target matters to you, the one you're pushing for, the one why it's going to just inch you forward to show up on those tough days, because you know the underlying reason. You know why this target or this goal matters to you. On the days you feel like skipping, read it out loud. Go back into your journal, study that, understand that process. It took you to understand your why. Now, if you don't know your why, okay, there's some work that needs to be done to understand what's an important target or goal for you to be moving towards in your life. And then as that unfolds, you'll find even more or bigger why, and ultimately leading to your grand purpose or your massive transformative purpose, which will ultimately shape the whole fabric of your life. But you need some little whys to help you show up on those tough days, to give you that extra push, not the motivation, because that's fleeting, but the discipline and the toughness to say, I'm going to show up regardless of how I feel, because I know I'm supposed to do this and I know this is important to me. So I'm showing up, especially on the hard and tough days. Number 3, don't dwell on things. Don't let a problem dominate your mind. Mentally strong and tough people focus only on what's in their control. They act on that and then they move on. Mentally tough people, really strong, mentally tough people control the controllables. That's what don't dwell on things is. Control the controllables. What are the few things that are totally within your control, and how can I dominate those things day in and day out? How can I dominate those things day in and day out? Regardless of the external situations around me. I control my attitude, I control my effort, and I control my response. Everything else, I'm going to let go. Yes, of course, this is harder said than done. That's why it's a skill. That's why it's a practice that we try and improve upon day in and day out. But the only way we can improve upon it is if we're actually utilizing it and implementing it in real time, in real life situations, whether in the sports field, the business field, as a parent, whatever it is, we're trying to utilize this, control the controllables in our everyday life. Okay, the situation is a little crazy right now. What do I have full control over? What can I put my action towards right now? And what can I try and let go so I can give my full attention and effort to these things that are inside of my control? That's a mental process that you can go through in your mind to understand what's in your circle of influence. How can I dominate those things inside my circle of influence and try my best to let everything else go and fall down the wayside. And so again, here's another tip on how to improve. Set decision deadlines. For small decisions, give yourself 5 minutes. For medium ones, 5 hours. And for big decisions, no more than 5 days. These help you understand what's in your control about these decisions and what's not. And when it comes to decisions, the even more important part than the actual decision will be the actions you take following the decision. Yes, of course, the decisions are important. They matter. They have influence and impact. But what really is going to govern your life is those actions you take after you make a decision. And the actions are about understanding what's fully in my control about this decision and then trying to dominate those action steps to best improve my life or make the best out of the situation that I'm currently in. So that's number 3. 2 more. Number 4, practice empathy. Empathy is a superpower. Mentally strong people don't take things personally. They seek to understand the viewpoints of others and build stronger relationships because of it. Nobody does anything great alone. Nobody does anything great alone. I don't care how many people say that it was all them. They did this all by themselves. It's just not true. It's never true. There are people along the way inside of your journey who helped you. Nobody does this thing alone. And empathy is one of those things that can help us build relationships. And great relationships are a cornerstone of a great life. And they're also a cornerstone of mentally tough, mentally well people, because we know that we need others. Social connection is the fabric of our life, and it's a beautiful part of this existence. And so empathy, practicing empathy, is a superpower. And so here is a tip on how to improve that moving forward. Challenge yourself to have one conversation per day where you focus solely on understanding the other person's perspective. I mean, that's just a beautiful thing to try and do, impactful conversations. But how can you have at least one conversation every day to work on this skill of empathy that you're just listening to understand? You're not listening to talk. You're not listening to react. You're not listening to give advice. You're not listening other than the fact that you just truly want to understand this person talking to you. That's why this podcast simply has changed my life. When I bring a guest on, I'm really trying my best to listen, to understand, to feel them, to hear them, to understand their perspective, their knowledge, their insights, and then respond accordingly. But in these conversations that you challenge yourself to have, one per day, one per week, one per month, whatever feels suiting for you in your life, you're solely trying to understand the other person's perspective. You're working on your listening skills, your understanding skills, you're practicing your empathy. All of these things are paramount to, again, building strong, meaningful, impactful relationships, which is the cornerstone of living the good life. And so challenge yourself to do these little tips, these little action steps every single day, because this is what's going to help. habits. It's about habits, and habits boil down to your actions. Actions boil down to how consistent you are on a day-to-day basis to doing the things you know you need to do to improve these things. So if you want to become a person who's more mentally tough, you have to do these things on the most consistent basis as you possibly can. And we know empathy is a superpower, and building relationships is one of the most important things we have in this life. And so challenge yourself to do those things, to have those conversations, to solely listen, to understand a person's perspective, to seek to be curious and non-judgmental and just like, wow, I have absolutely unconditional positive regard for this person, and I just want to understand where they're coming from. That's a beautiful place to live. And last one, number 5, stretch your comfort zone. Stretch your comfort zone. A comfort zone is a beautiful place, but nothing ever grows in the comfort zone. Next time you feel close to your limit, challenge yourself to do just a little bit more. We want to get to the edge of our capacity and then stretch it out just a little bit more. We don't want to stretch it too far because then our skills don't match where we're going to be, and then we feel like we fell short. We want to get to the edge of our capacity and then stretch just a little bit more to keep pushing our competence and our comfort zone out just a little bit farther each and every time as we expand who we are and expand who we think we're capable of being while dominating the things that are in our control, right? This is about stretching our comfort zone because nothing ever grows in the comfort zone, right? Discomfort, embracing challenges, all of these things are a good sign of growth, and we need to be more comfortable in this space, feeling those types of emotions, feeling that type of discomfort, knowing that we're just creeping past our capacity, expanding who we are and who we're capable of being, and giving us credible evidence that we are the person we say we are, and knowing that we're becoming the best version of ourselves by expanding this capacity, giving our best effort, controlling the controllables, practicing empathy, doing all of these things that we've talked about to build this mental toughness. And so here's the tool on how to improve. Apply the +1 principle. If you plan to read for 30 minutes a day, aim for 31. Stretch that capacity just a little bit, not too far where you feel useless or your competence doesn't line up, but just a little bit, +1. If you're exercising, add a single repetition or one more set to beyond the set that you think you're capable of doing, right? Be careful with exercise. You don't want to hurt yourself, of course, but apply this sort of +1 principle, right? You're going to walk for 10 minutes. Okay, let's do 11 minutes. You're going to do 10 push-ups. Let's do 11 push-ups, right? Apply this +1 principle because you're stretching your comfort zone. Then you're giving yourself these bonus reps, and you're giving yourself credible evidence that you can move past this. You can work through discomfort. You can work through challenging emotions. You can push yourself past your perceived limits because you are more capable than you think you are, and we're giving ourselves the credible evidence to expand that in ourselves, so we're on our way to becoming that best version of ourselves day in and day out. And so those are going to be the 5 things that we can do to build our mental toughness. So number 1 was delay gratification. Number 2 was to show up on the tough days. Number 3 was don't dwell on things or control the controllables. Number 4 was practice empathy. And number 5 was stretch your comfort zone. Again, those are 5 things that we can do to build our mental toughness, because mental toughness, like we said at the beginning, comes down to your habits. It's about doing things you know you're supposed to do on a more consistent basis. It's about your dedication to daily practice and your ability to stick to a schedule, right? Your habits form the foundation of your mental beliefs, and ultimately those mental beliefs are going to set you apart from everyone else. So build that mental toughness, head in the right direction, and become the person I know you're capable of being. Strong, confident, capable, amazing person that this world needs. We need your gifts. We need you to share them with the world. So please, thank you. We're on our way together to becoming that best version of ourselves. And that's all I have for you today. Thank you very much for tuning into this episode. If you enjoyed it, our absolutely best marketing tool that we have is you share this episode with a friend because you found it enjoyable or valuable or whatever the case may be. So I appreciate you very much, and I'll see you next time. Cheers. Thank you very much for tuning into that episode. And if you enjoyed it, click right here for another full-length episode of the podcast. And please don't forget to subscribe. But most importantly, above all else, please take good care of yourselves and others. And I'll see you next time. Lots of love. Cheers.